March 7, 2022, the Russian Armed Federation of the LPR seized 67 settlements, which include the Lugansk and Donetsk regions of Ukraine. The operation to liberate the territory of the Luhansk People's Republic continues, and Ukraine has consolidated their forces in key cities and crossings in an attempt to hold critical infrastructure vital to the longevity of the Ukrainian armed forces. Since before the war started, I had been following the Russian buildup along the border, as well as the reaction and fortification of Ukraine's forces. As a result, I began to wonder why the Russians so openly told the world that they were invading, as I don't think anyone truly believed that this was just a military exercise. Why would Russia give Ukraine time to form a defense, garner support from its allies, and form a strategic defense? This in and of itself is not an effective strategy of attack. Even after the initial invasion on the 24th, I had questions about the methodology of the Russian armed forces and how logically the first attack posture made rational sense. No one could truly know what Russia planned to do, but as the war progressed in Ukraine, it became clear what their real motives were. Due to this, the armed formations of Ukraine utilized heavy artillery on the now Russian-occupied territories. Ukrainian 120mm mortars, MLRS BM-21, and 122mm artillery cannons rained down on four key Russian bastions: Slitlerdarsk, Moskovina, Popasina, and Permavsky. This hammered the Russian battalions, which halted their advance inland towards the center of Ukraine. Earlier in the week, from March 2nd to March 5th, Ukraine's forces attempted to thwart Russian advancement and blew up the Makala Bridge and the Anavsky Bridge, which span Ukraine's southern border. This is where RAF had made major advancements. If the Ukraine forces did not halt them here, they would be surrounded by both the northern, southern, and eastern fronts. On the eastern front, Russian armed forces broke through the defensive lines of Ukraine's strongholds fortified in Izum. Down further southeast, Seversky Donetsk, Ukraine battalions were forced to retreat to the southern portion of the city, as major offensives by Russian detachments surged from the northern and eastern sides of the municipality. Russian command has ordered the detachments to neutralize and destroy one of Ukraine's largest military bases stationed at the railway junctions in Izum. As fights intensify on Ukrainian soil, the Russian government has been hit hard by several sanctions by NATO in an attempt to deter Russia from any further actions against Ukraine, quickly shutting down major social media networks, supply chains, and bank institutions. Due to the restrictions imposed on Russia, this dropped the price of the ruble 41% down to 117 per US dollar.
We were hearing earlier in the hour the Russian economy, it is plunging, taking a direct hit from the sanctions announced by Ukraine's allies. The ruble absolutely in free fall.
Yeah, indeed. 30% was the plunge overnight. That was a record one-day plunge and also a record low for the ruble. And this is expected to increase inflation in the country as well, because anyone within the country having to buy something outside of the country, it'll be 30% more expensive than Friday.
This did not stop Russia. It only stoked the flames even further and gave President Vladimir Putin validity in his cause to destroy the Western influence along his border. The security of Russia was at stake, and if Putin did not do something fast, it would be the downfall of the sovereignty of Russia. These sanctions imposed by NATO and the US was an act of war against Russia. Putin could not stand for this direct assault from NATO and the US. If they wanted to inflict harm on Russia and utilize sanctions on its economy as a deterrence, Putin could play that same game.
Following Putin's order to put and alert Russian nuclear forces, what a madness. If he wants to kill himself, he doesn't need to use nuclear arsenal. He has to do what the guy in Berlin did in a bunker in May 1945.
How and when does this end, and do you see him trying to go beyond Ukraine? And a second question I'll just give to you now. This statement that he gave last night, the threat that he gave, the West will face consequences greater than any you have faced in history. Is he threatening a nuclear strike?
I have no idea what he's threatening.
In a matter of days, things have now escalated to a level not seen since World War II and the Cold War. Russia needed a cause for their aggression against Ukraine, a justification. They needed to justify their assault on Ukraine. Putin and the Kremlin demised the perfect plan, the perfect excuse for the war on Ukraine. US biological laboratories stationed in Ukraine. The Russian Ministry of Defense took to the air and stated, Ukrainian Nazis in Mariupol deploy firing points in their houses with inscriptions, "Do not shoot children here." This is a terrorist tactic.